All of you lovely, lovely people. So while I'm waiting for this to get out to all of the people who will be watching this live, I'll go ahead and talk to those who are watching it on the replay. On demand, as it were. Don't forget, you can follow me at twitter.com/lore reloaded. And of course, if you haven't, I do a lot of different polls and things. I'll be doing some non-canon stuff. So if you haven't checked out my community tab, you really should go there, youtube.com/lore reloaded. Check out the community tab. We're going to be doing some non-canon stuff. And if you're on my Twitter, you may have seen a very cool interaction between me and another source. So I may have a pretty cool announcement of some partnerships coming up if it works out. Hopefully it does. If it doesn't, it is what it is. It sounds like it's going to go pretty well, though. Got Rough Collies Rock. Hey, what you doing? Mr. Pete 8680. Dudes, back to you. Mason Herman saying hi. Rough Collies Rock saying that he liked my video on the fall of the Galactic Empire, which is right. Definitively should have. I'm going to start doing it behind the scenes while I'm editing. You guys can hang out with me. I'll be doing that on Twitch. I think that's going to be at twitch.tv/lore reloaded. Let me confirm that I actually have a Twitch there. I should. I do. So yeah, definitely go and follow me there because all my behind the scenes stuff will be going on there. I was considering Mixer. I may or may not. I don't know. It's going to be Twitch right now. But yeah. So we're going to be talking about the Klingon War. We're going to be talking about how Axanar did it versus how Discovery did it. Not necessarily a direct comparison, but just discussing the war itself. I'm not trying to... I know I have the verses there, but this isn't which is better. This is, let's talk about the Klingon War and which one we would have preferred. And Laura, I'd love to come and do the show one day, maybe 8680. Hatfield 4805. Definitively, I will be doing Babylon 5, but I need to watch some more episodes of it. I don't feel like I have a complete understanding of it. I barely feel like I got a Stargate, an understanding of Stargate. I'll be doing Stargate SG-1 tomorrow, and I've gotten to a point where I feel comfortable enough. Huge fan of you and the Anti-Trekker. Please keep the lore coming. Here for you, Bob Newell. Max Jenner, never seen Axanar. Could you summarize for me? So you can actually go see it online for free. If you do, you should tweet them and tell them that Lore Reloaded said hi and that you saw them because of me. So Axanar is basically a mockumentary. And they got the heck suit out of them by CBS. It was a whole big dramatic thing. I don't necessarily want to get into that, but Prelude to Axanar is just this wonderful video. Regardless of whether you agree with Axanar, regardless of whether you like Alec Peters, Prelude to Axanar itself was wonderfully put together. It's a mockumentary talking about the 4 Years' War. It is just one of the best fan fictions that I've put together, or that they've put together. I had nothing to do with it. And it was just wonderful. Now, and what it is basically, again, it goes through the 4 Years' War. It talks about how the Klingons, when they first got into the war, was just beating the living heck out of the Federation. The Federation was just losing time after time. And so a new admiral was promoted, and he had a new ship commissioned. And this ship was built to leapfrog Klingon technology, and it did. It was just excellent. And what's interesting is during Prelude to Axanar, it talks about how the Klingons didn't give the Federation their due. Because the Starfleet was losing so badly, they were basically taking their time dismantling the Federation. They didn't respect them. They didn't think it was going to be a big deal, so they weren't pushing it. They were just killing them somewhat lazily. And so during this time, the captains that survived became veterans, and they got the new ship out, and now you have veterans with a ship that can defeat Klingon ships, and basically they re-got the advantage, and the Federation and Starfleet started pushing back. After that, it came down to a race of who could build the destroyer first. The Federation was building the Constitution class, the Klingon was building the D7s, and the mockumentary ends on both ships basically getting done at about the same time. And it's just really well put together. Perseus Gold. Now, Perseus Gold has given me a super chat, which helps me out. This is how I make my bread, how I keep my lights, how I feed my cats. So I'm going to dance for Perseus, because I always dance when I get a super chat. And of course, just so you guys know, you can either give super chats or go to patreon.com/lore reloaded for additional perks. I don't paywall any of my videos, but additional perks added to it. And I got some cool things coming up dealing with super chats and Patreon, but that's later. But again, dance. And Perseus says, I prefer Axanar due to tactical spec analysis. Axanar, Prelude to Axanar is really well put together. Now, there are some differences between the two, I think, because Prelude to Axanar is about the war specifically, whereas Discovery is Game of Thrones. So we're going to have some troubles. Game of Thrones meets Days of Our Lives for Discovery. So we're going to try to parse it out because they don't talk about the war a lot. So it's not completely fair, but we're going to try to bring that together. What up, Lore? What up, Wolfkiln6? Have you heard about Mr. Sci-Fi? Mr. Sci-Fi is new show called Space Command. I've heard rumors about that. I don't know too much about it, though. I thought Garth Vizar was the proto-captain and was surprised he wasn't on the list of great captains. I was too, but I think that... So, look, this is my theory. I could be wrong. I think Lorca is going to be Garth Vizar. I do. I think Lorca's middle name is probably Garth, or his real name's Garth. I really think that's what's going to happen there. So, what if BioWare made a Star Trek game? I guess it would be similar to Star Wars. What's up, 14K Liam? So, the war specifically, I think that Prelude to Axanar does the Klingon War better, but that was Prelude to Axanar's focus, whereas in Discovery it's not. But the interesting thing... The interesting thing, and Mr. First off, going to Paul Lepla, I will take a look at that and see. I will definitively try to determine what's going on there, and if it's a good show or if it has lore, I may even break it down. But from what I can tell on Discovery with the war, it doesn't really look like the Federation ever is truly losing the war. And again, maybe it's because there's not a huge focus on it, so you can't really get a good understanding. But when you look at the maps, the one thing I do like about Discovery is he has that map up of the Federation and the Klingons, like their borders, and it actually changes. I thought that was cool. I thought that was a cool aspect. Different episodes, and even sometimes within the same episode in Lorca's office, the grid will change on who's owning what. And it honestly always looks like they're winning even before they get the whole spore drive working down, you know? So the actual things we can see in the battles with Discovery, I think, is awesome. With the exception of the models necessarily. Let's just remove how the models don't look like they should when it comes to the Klingons. The battles itself is very... Thank you. I like my cat too. The battles themselves are pretty well put together, and they remind me of what battles would be, I think, when it comes to fighting in space in Trek with Discovery. Especially, and this is going to sound sacrilege, but I think that Discovery does ship battles better than Deep Space Nine did ship battles. I sincerely do. And it feels like it's a real fight. It feels like every hit matters in Discovery, and I like that. I like that a lot. And you can get an honest scope of at least how it seems like the Klingons have more ships than they do. Again, it never feels like in Discovery there's actually the Federation is losing, but it does. You can tell that when they're in a fight, they're always being swarmed. Rough Collie's Rock says it's almost like the Klingon War was a side plot. The main plot is about Discovery and learning about its crew and how they want to win the war. Interesting how episode 9 will end the Klingon arc. Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. The war was never meant to be anything that they were going to explore, just how it impacted them. But when the ships fight, it feels like everything mattered. And another thing that's interesting. So I've been going back when I started Trek before I became the lore master. I usually watch The Next Generation. I watched Deep Space Nine. I watched all of the movies. I've seen all of the movies except for the last 2 JJ verse ones. And I was never a huge the original series fan. But since I've started doing this, I've gotten a huge, just absolute huge respect for the original series. What's going on, Professor Janus? And I have to be kind of honest. The combat, even though it's slower in the original series, felt more real than a lot of the combat in even The Next Generation and definitely Deep Space Nine. Now, I love Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine is still my favorite series to date. But I think Discovery nails it when it comes to how combat is supposed to work, especially based on the way the original series did it. And the like the shields, usually during TNG and definitely Deep Space Nine, basically the percentage meant how much would bleed through. But that wasn't the original way the shields worked. Generally, shields would be up, and you would use your phasers to peg the shields, bring them down, and then use the torpedo to end the battle. It was naval combat at its best, and Discovery does that well. I mean, there are things we can like about Discovery. Compare the original series to the Orville, and I find they are similar. I don't find the original series and Orville are all that similar. I find that the Next Generation and the Orville are amazingly similar. I think that if they did the Next Generation today, it would basically be what the Orville looks like. I think that they looked at the Orville and they said yes. Or I think that the Orville looked at the Next Generation and said that's what we're going to do. And that's what I exactly think. The original series is a lot more mature than the Orville is, in my opinion. Is the lens flare attack an actual practical combat procedure? We haven't ever seen it. That's the one thing I don't like about combat, I'll say that. Is that, yeah, you can lens flare the living heck out. That's exactly how I defeat the Federation, is that tactic right there. So they do have issues, obviously, but the combat itself without that glaring failure when it comes to combat itself, I think is pretty cool. Rough Collie's Rock says, from an audience perspective, I can't talk. If they took the Klingon War out, the show would have no end goal, so it technically is a plot device, but a plot device to slowly drive the story forward. Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that I really wish they'd show the war more, but that's not the show. That's not what the show's about. The show is a character analysis, specifically of Burnham. Now, if you want to say something about Discovery did try something new. They did say, hey, we've never done something like this. Usually it's been Villain of the Week, ensemble, with the story arcs as the story, and they turned it on its head and they said, let's make it about a specific character. And so they did try to quote-unquote break the mold in that way. But I don't know that was necessarily the best idea. I think it works best when it's an ensemble, but that is what they've tried to do, right? But when you compare that, so we've talked about Discovery, or what we know of the Klingon War. When you look at Axanar, that's the actual story, the plot. Now it's around Garth. It's the things that happen to Garth, but it's a mockumentary about the war. And so you really feel the scope and the damage that the Klingons are doing. You don't get a lot of the ship battles, but Axanar, while it had a huge budget, which was one of the reasons I'm sure it got sued, isn't actually... you don't see a lot of the combat between the ships themselves, but you just see how the Federation is ill-prepared. And a lot of the... in the Klingon War, they try to make it where the Federation is ill-prepared. In the Discovery for the Klingon War. But the thing is it doesn't ever feel like that. And it should, you know? It absolutely should feel like they weren't prepared for it, because they're not trying to win. They're trying to stop the war, and you can't win a war like that. You think the Spores Drive going to do an Adama maneuver at some point? You see it in the commercials for the next show. So absolutely they're going to be doing the Adama zipping around it. But if you mean going into the atmosphere, I guess. I mean, I don't know how they'd make that work, but they might try. I could see them trying to make it work. S. Blair was apparently rude and is asking for forgiveness. Not sure what she did for rudeness, but you are forgiven. Didn't Discovery let someone out of the brig because the suspect was scared? Would that count as ill-prepared? Didn't Discovery let someone out of the brig because the suspect was scared? I don't remember that. So, if they did, that would count as ill-prepared. I agree. Rough Collie's back, and it's the first show... Discovery, and it's the first show... Oh, you're not talking about Discovery, I doubt. And it's the first show with an actual good first season. P.S. Apologies for typing. My fingers really... work really fast on keyboard. One more point. This is the birth of the Federation and the Klingon Empire. Okay. Daniel Ramirez in the house saying, shame we won't be able to see more Axanar like mockumentaries. Can you imagine if they were able to do the Dominion War? You know, here's the thing. After the lawsuit, they're allowed to do 2 15-minute spots. And I specifically tweeted them this, and I'm sure they care about my opinion on things, but what I told them is that they should just continue the mockumentary. When I saw Prelude to Axanar, and they said that they're going to be doing the show, I thought that was going to be another mockumentary. And when you give money, that that you're paying for another mockumentary. That's what they need to do. The mockumentary was a hit. They just need to do the mockumentary. Watch with us says, sweet, has anyone brought up the novel / fanbook Star Trek Year 1? Best explanation of the early Federation I've read. No one has brought it up but you now. I will definitively have to read that. Sounds interesting. When is the Federation ever ready for war? Well, that's the flaw of the Federation, I guess. If you had to say what the flaw of the Federation was, is that they are never prepared for war, which is their only weakness, because if they were, they'd be a juggernaut. They could not be defeated. So their pacifism basically gives them the only weakness that they really have. Do you think Starfleet is a military organization, asks Professor Janus. See, I can never win with that. Ever. And I think, Professor Janus, you've been with me for, ever. So I think you've seen my, 3 videos I've done on that. I think you're asking me that because you want me to get yelled at. I'm pretty sure. So, but I will go ahead and answer the question. I think that Starfleet, when it first started out, was an under the United Earth, was an exploration entity that had some defense to it. When the Federation was formed, Starfleet, they had just gotten through the conflict with the United Earth Romulan conflict. The Federation was a coalition of planets to build defense as well as economic. So I believe at that point, and they were entering into the Cold War with the Klingons. So during the original series, definitively they were a military. I would say that it would probably be 50-50, that they would be a military and a science. I think towards the end, up until Undiscovered Country, it would probably shift to 70% military, 30% science. After the Federation won the Cold War, they would then backslide and become very scientific, very mall in space. You know, Lore Runner actually brought up a great point. He said it's not a mall in space, it's like an apartment building in space. I think that's a lot more apt. But it became the Galaxy class cruiser was basically an apartment building in space with weapons from an old war mentality, but really not believing. So at that time, while they may have been a military, they weren't a very good one. So the original series, definitely a military. The Next Generation, still military, but not really efficient, not really wanting war. And then Dominion War, they slide back into being a military. Well, past Wolf 359 and Dominion War, they move back into being a military. So I think that they have slopes to them. But ultimately a military, just depending on what period you look at, how efficient or effective they are. Professor Janus says, actually, I've only been here for about a week or two, but I'm asking if Starfleet is a military organization as a whole at this time in the series. If you're talking about what we're discussing, the Klingon War, then yes, but not what we see in the original series. And I thought you'd been with us for a lot longer, Professor Janus. That's just how awesome you are. That it feels like you've been here forever. Samavarati 3 was going on. But yeah, so at this point they would be a military. I don't think they'd be to the stage that we see with the original series. And maybe the 4 Years' War is what really pushed them into it. They've always been technically a military. They just go in and out of stages of preparedness. You ever wanted to discuss Pacific 201 lore? That sounds familiar, but I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'll need more information, Coco Monk. Do we need to see Burnham's human parents? Will it signify anything important rather than seeing them on screen? No. We don't need to see them. I don't think it would add anything of any value at all. We need to move to an ensemble cast, in fact. Her parents were killed anyway, weren't they? They were killed in the attack. I thought. That's why she has the stepfather. Because they were killed in the attack. Military is such a dirty word, says Watch With Us. I prefer Defense Force. Like the Klingon Defense Force. The way the Federation is set up, taking in member worlds means they would have hundreds of core worlds. UFOP, I'm assuming you mean UFP, ship production would be far in excess of the other powers, especially during wartime. So yeah, see, and that's kind of what I'm saying. That's why ultimately the Dominion didn't once the Federation got, and man, I'm getting a new camera, guys, so you don't have to worry about that. But once the Federation got going, they couldn't be stopped. They are a powerhouse. That's why I 100% every time I am on how the border wars made absolutely no sense. The Cardassian border wars coming to a stalemate is literally Starfleet and the Federation saying, you know what? We're so pacifistic. We don't want to win wars. We'll let people die. They let people die when they had the option not to. Star Trek Outer Limits, new ship, new crew every episode. That would be interesting. It would be hard for audiences, though. You know, people hate the JJ verse, and I can understand that, but the JJ verse, I believe, really did save Star Trek. If you can make the opinion that it's not Trek, you can say that, but I don't think Trek in TNG or DS9 could survive these days. And so if you want Trek, then we have to have JJ verse, and we may even have to have Discovery. Now, the thing to that, and here's the caveat, it is natural for things to die. It is natural for things to end. And if we're at a point that we can't tell good stories, or we can't make it what it needs to be for it to stay Trek, then maybe it should end. A lot of people don't like that, but that's just the honest truth. Things have to survive. You have to talk to the lowest denominator, or if you have a niche, you got to have a niche that people can that is big enough to support what you're doing. Mr. Pete 8680 says, Max, let me guess, 90s baby. I was born in 84, 8680. So if you're mad at Max, you're mad at me too, sir. The Orville is doing okay, and it has the same formula as Star Trek, the Next Generation Star Trek. I agree. I think they've added things to it, but I also think that the Orville works as a dramedy. I don't think that you could put that on the big screen, and I guess we'll have to see where it goes from here to see how mythos and lore works with it. Do you think people are being too harsh on Discovery because CBS did the fan film guidelines and that canon is kind of weird and messed up? I think that the people who are upset about Axanar are a small to moderate amount of people who are very loud about their discontent and who are upset about the CBS doing what it's doing. CBS has taken hundreds upon hundreds of dollars from me. They've literally taken it out of my pocket. So I'm no huge fan of CBS. And I think some of that is because of Axanar. But I would say the large amount of people don't necessarily care about it. I think the reason people don't like Discovery is a couple of reasons. I think the paywall. I think they had a horrendous first and second episode, just absolutely horrible. And it just seems like a money grab. It just seems like a humongous money grab. Hainer Tim says, I'm enjoying Discovery. The plots are deeper and motives aren't always so clear. I'm coming around. I don't love it per se, but I'm coming around to it, I guess, is how you would put that. Apparently, Russell Webster turns 50 on Friday. Congrats, Russell Webster. Happy B-Day. Have I watched Oats Studios on YouTube? I have not watched Oats Studios. I've never even heard of Oats Studios. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to watch it, but I will put it right here so I can look at it after this conversation. Oats Studios. With over 350,000 subscribers, no less. Yeah, see, I don't know that I would say Discovery is a cash grab. Obviously, they're doing it for money, but I don't know that it's a cash grab. I would say, I think here's my problem with Discovery. I think it's too many of small things. So let me put it this way. I think it is a cash grab. I think people are upset about that. I think they do have an agenda that is farther left than what you generally see with Trek. Trek has always been far left, but this is like far, far left. And I think that the actors think a little bit too much of themselves. And those would be the three reasons that I think it's having issues. Did you ever get around to watching Babylon 5? I read somewhere that it ran about the same time DS9 did and was considered its competitor show because of the kind of themes their stories contained. I was talking about that beforehand. I am watching Babylon 5. I intend to do Babylon 5 lore, but I want to get a better understanding of it. Lore Runner, a guy I've talked about a lot. I love Lore Runner. He's one of the people I really look up to. Him, SF Debris, Trek Yards. They would be who I consider... not peers, I'd say a step above, and I watch their shows and their videos to try to improve my show. And I enjoy their content, but I really watch it because I want to see what they do, because I want to make sure that I'm doing what they're saying. Lore Runner talks about this and how he feels that it probably wasn't a stolen concept. And the research he's done, I think, is pretty impeccable on it. So I don't think they stole it, but it is definitely a similar concept, and I do like Babylon 5, what I've seen of it. Space Bear video. Oh man, so at first I shook my head. I thought that was just people who wanted to hate Discovery, the tardigrade thing. When I first heard that, and I did a cursory scan of it, I thought it was people who hated Discovery wanting to just hate Discovery and find another reason not to like them. But after looking at the evidence, it really pisses me off how uptight they get about copyright about copyright intellectual property. I mean, seriously, someone played that game when they were playing someone played that tardigrade game when they were putting this together. Lore, if you were to make a case to the UFP for the rearmament and formation of an army/naval organization, what would it be? I'd have to think about that one. So I'm trying to talk the Federation into rearming. Honestly, it would depend on the era that I'm talking to them, of course, but almost 100% I would go back to the original series. I would discuss the benefits of a military, how in the original series, the fact that they had bulked up and built out ships and defensive capabilities, that it kept the Klingons from moving forward. My discussions would be around peace through the threat of violence. You don't ever have to use, if you have the biggest, just because you have the biggest gun doesn't mean you ever have to use it. And then I know we can get into conversations about escalation, but I really feel like you can prevent a lot of violence if you have a big military that you're willing to use if it comes down to it. Considering what you were saying about Starfleet dipping in out of war preparedness, I think Starfleet probably has many first warship designs. They just pretend each one is a new concept for PR. I guess. I mean, the next generation is so different from the original series when it comes to how they handled war and how they handled militaries. Honestly, I think that if you had Picard talking to Kirk about what the Federation and Starfleet were, they would have completely different opinions on it. And I think that Kirk would call Picard an idiot, and I think Picard would call Kirk a warmonger, just because of how different the concepts were. Neil Blomkamp is head of the Oat Studios. Have we seen Jonathan Frakes directed episodes yet on Discovery? I don't think Jonathan Frakes has directed any episodes yet. I know he will be. JTM, peace through superior firepower. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Just because... So, I don't want to get too political here. I sincerely don't want to, but I'm not saying it's 100%. And again, there is a discussion from escalation. But all things remaining equal, if you have two houses and you know one has someone who owns a gun, who knows how to use it, who has access to it, and you have another person who doesn't have a gun and doesn't access it at all and doesn't even believe in guns, which one are you going to rob? Again, there are things that can go in and out of it, but just because you have ships that are, just because you have the ships that are like the Akura class, that are like the Defiant class, just because you have Voyager, which Intrepid's a beast, I don't care what anybody says, doesn't mean that you have to use them. It just means that it prevents other people from coming in and completely pwning you. Speak softly and carry a big stick if you have to use it to kill it until it dies. Yep, I laughed so hard alone in my room when I heard you say there was a Constitution at Wolf 359. Yeah, that was just ridiculous, man. 3 Oberths at Sector 001. I know people try to talk around that, saying that they were there to pick up or to do sensors or to try to help. You're fighting the Borg. You don't send ships for that purpose. You send ships to go and kill it. So they sent those Oberths to fight because I think that they were throwing everything at it. But still, Lore Reloaded, what are your views on the Prime Directive? I can't stand most of the Prime Directive. If you've ever watched SF Debris, I think he describes it absolutely well. And I do think that I'm going to do a video, lore video on the Prime Directive. I will correct myself a little bit. I think I'm watching the original series now, and the way I see them constitute the Prime Directive in the original series is done very well, and I could see myself agreeing with it more then than I do in like the Next Generation. In the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine a little bit, and Voyager, it's treated like it's basically the religion of the Federation. I swear, I know they didn't do this on purpose, but the Terrans definitely, and most of the species in the Federation are atheists. But you can tell that they've replaced their religion with the Prime Directive. the Prime Directive is their god, especially when you look at what Picard does with it. And I could just rant about that forever. I don't like the Prime Directive, the way that it's interpreted or the way that it's used. I wonder why they never go post-Nemesis, why they are so worried about doing that. If I was in charge, I would do a post-Nemesis series in 2379. No, I would do a post-Nemesis series. Nemesis was in 2379, so I would do a series in the year 2420. So here's the thing about that. I honestly would love to see a series that is in the future, but I think that it would be hard to, and I don't think you can. The Federation is the most powerful entity after the Dominion War. That you would have to do something pretty drastic to knock it down to size, or you'd have to go back to the exploration thing that we saw in the Next Generation, and I don't think audiences today would do a Next Generation exploration. I know they're doing it in Orville, but I think that we can all agree that Orville is fundamentally different as a dramedy than any specific series that we would see that would be accepted by Trekkies in Trek. I think the reasons Soniquia, I can never say her name, Mrs. or Miss Green's acting is strange is not because she's a bad actor. She's playing the role of a human race on Vulcan and learning how to not be... Do you guys need some help? Are you okay? I don't really like her portrayal. Her portrayal is very Voyager or TNG Vulcan. And I don't think that's the appropriate way Vulcans are done, in my opinion. I don't think she's a bad actress. I've never seen her act anywhere else, so I don't know much about her. I can believe that she's a real person. It doesn't knock me out of it, but I believe she's a stereotype Vulcan, or a stereotype person brought up by Vulcan. Quick question about Federation military. Did the member worlds ever fuss about not having a military? The older members would be content in their technology, but wouldn't newer members be less content? So there's conflicting information about Defense Forces and whether Defense Forces agree or whether they have Defense Forces or not. I think that you might have local militias that still exist among member planets, but the actual military is Starfleet. I think that like you said, I think that newer planets would probably have a hard time with that, especially if all of their military was taken and then was to go off into space and not be around to defend the planet itself. So I could see that as an issue. Daniel talking about his idea the series would be set in the year 2420. We would have a massive new threat to the Alpha Quadrant, like Species 8472 or maybe something else. So they have to make a new Enterprise to combat this. I mean, it could work. I'd have to see the concept. I think they're too powerful, though. You're going to have power creep. What's it called? I'm going to call it power creep. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it would work. I'd have to see. Lore, you should do a vid on Maquis. I'm going to start doing a lot more lore crafting because people love the lore crafting. So I may actually do that. What would have happened if the Maquis had actually had a nation state? That'd be an interesting idea. By the way, first I'm going to answer this question. In your opinion, should Michael's upbringing on Vulcan be considered child abuse? Yes, I guess. I don't know. So, this Sunday, we're going to have the post show. And then, as you guys know, Discovery won't come back until January. Me and the Anti-Trekker are going to be starting something on Star Trek Online, where we have discussions, where we're playing Star Trek Online and discussing things and having fun with it. Also, you need to get on my Twitter, twitter.com/lore reloaded, because I may have been in contact with Star Trek Online, so there may be something going on there, hopefully. Who does Starfleet answer to, the President or the Federation Council? I would assume, because of the way it looks like it's set up, the Well, the way it's set up is interesting. I think Starfleet Command is in control of the Starfleet, but I think that ultimately all of the power is through the president. I think it's set up like the United States. Laura, did you read Bryan Singer's Star Trek Federation pitch? It's really great. You should read it and talk about it in your vids. Have not read it? If you will comment after this video goes live, not right now, but after the video goes live, I will get around to reading it. What about the Iconians come back similar to Star Trek Online? Wouldn't that work better for the Spore Drive in Discovery? Maybe. The Iconians are always an interesting discussion. It's like the Organians, who are interesting, I think. What is the highest position in Starfleet? I would imagine it's some form of admiral. Can you do an Orville lore? Yes, I am in fact doing a battle breakdown. I don't know if it's next week or the week after next week, but I'll be doing a battle breakdown of, what is it, Hugging the Donkey? I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to tag the actor for that. I think he's going to get a kick out of it. But yeah, I'm doing a lore breakdown. And I'm doing a battle breakdown. I'm doing a battle breakdown of the attack of the Klingon Tribble War. So what I'm going to be doing with Star Trek Online, just so you guys know, regardless of if I partner up with the game, which I hope I do, but whether I partner up with them or not, what I will be doing is I will be playing it every Sunday for sure, and I'm pretty sure we're going to start our own fleet and see how it goes. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set this up. I'm going to try to run the fleet. I'm going to try to have fun with the fleet. YouTube takes up a ton of my time, so I may set it up and only be able to play it on Sundays. Or I may try to play it every day and try to keep it together and try to make a cool thing. But it is going to be something I'm going to attempt. But if it doesn't work out, you guys can't get mad at me, just so we're all on the same page. It is the Chief of Starfleet Command. That was the official title from the movies. Sure, but I will bet you $1,000 he's an admiral. I actually won't bet you $1,000, believe it or not. While you can make a livable wage on YouTube, you can definitively do a lot better than that working at Wendy's. Could the Federation have stopped the formation of the Maquis while still making the Demilitarized zone? Yes. But what they would have had to do is they would have had to move for, well, a couple of things. They either, on the Demilitarized zone, they needed to keep their promise and keep watch and make sure that the Cardassians didn't that the Cardassians kept their word, because they didn't do that. The Maquis, a large part of the Maquis was formed because the Cardassians didn't keep their word, and Starfleet did nothing. It was like, oh, we're going to investigate it. We're going to constantly investigate it. And they never did, and nothing ever came from it. So either that or move through, forcibly remove them. Do what you say you're going to do. Get them off the planets, get them onto another planet, whether they wanted to or not, and I think you wouldn't have had the Maquis. Could we see the return of the Mako in Discovery? Maybe. If they did, I don't think they'd do anything with it, honestly. Are you open to EVE Online, the only game where you can actually gain actual degrees in business and economics? Probably not. I may try to play it, but I don't know that I'd put... If I was to do this as a thing for this channel, it would have to be something that I'm doing lore based on, and I'm just not in a position that I want to do lore on EVE. So it would have to be like Star Trek Online, it would have to be like Star Wars, something like that. I might play it with you just to see, but I don't think I would do that. In the books, the Typhon, it's not Typhoon, it's Typhon Pact, was a big rival post-Nemesis. It could be a good show because the Federation is stretched thin on relief efforts for Cardassia. Maybe. I mean, I'd have to see the pitch. I might read that book. Well, actually, I've already ordered that series. Let me rephrase. I've already ordered that series. I'm looking forward to finishing it. I think the peace treaty with the Cardassians was almost as stupid as the Treaty of Algernon. I, in fact, knew what that treaty was. You didn't even have to put it that it's about no cloaking for feds, but letting everyone else know is good. Some admirals should have been thrown in jail for both of those. Yeah, I think it was very Starfleet. I think it was very Starfleet. I think it's what Starfleet would have done. Star Wars canon or Star Wars Legends? Professor Janus asked. So are you asking me which one I prefer? Right now, Legends, but it's got so much more and it's so expanded. And a lot of people are upset that how they've changed it and they made the Empire very weak, and how the Emperor wanted to destroy the Empire, which makes a lot of sense. I'll really need to see where they go with it, but for now it's Legends. I absolutely love, but I'll say this, I love Ahsoka. I would love to see more of Ahsoka. In fact, I'm not sure that I'm going to be buying Star Wars Battlefront 2, but I can guarantee you I would pre-order it today if they said Ahsoka was going to be in it. I'd pre-order it while I'm on this thing with you guys. Didn't species like Andorians keep their fleet? There were mentions they kept their fleet. I don't think they did. I'd be very surprised if the Andorians kept their fleet. And if they did, it would be in the original series only. By the Next Generation, they definitively didn't. I'd need to see Alpha Canon for that, because that doesn't sound right at all. Empire falling in a year was kind of quick. Yeah, and the way they did it too was kind of silly. The Emperor wanting to destroy the entire Empire. I didn't necessarily like that either when I was looking at it. So yeah, I don't necessarily like the way they did that either. I would have much preferred if maybe the Imperial Admiral had gotten the entire fleet together, it had worked, and he had brought the Empire was about to come back. The New Republic comes in, and he would rather see everyone die than see a New Republic victory. That would make sense to me, not let's destroy our own forces, but that's the canon now. What happened to the Pope in Star Trek? I imagine he was killed in World War III, probably. Religion did not fare well. Of course, I'm sure that's because Roddenberry was not necessarily the biggest fan, to say it lightly. But sorry guys, I hate doing that where you can hear me click. I apologize. When you first had the Coalition of Planets and when the Federation was first formed, of course, everyone's going to have their own forces for at least the next 10 to 20 years, probably. But, well, I wouldn't even say 10 to 20 years, maybe 5 to 10 years. But after that, they would all start making Federation and Starfleet ships. One thing we do know is that even though they made Starfleet ships, the crews would like to be put together with similar crews. Like you had the USS Intrepid, which was an entirely Vulcan ship. In Deep Space Nine, there was an entirely Vulcan ship. So you would see in Trek that they would have Federation ships. They would be Starfleet ships. It wouldn't be a Vulcan ship. It wouldn't be an Andorian ship. But it might be crewed by 90% of whatever you're following. So Vulcan, Andorian, whatnot. Orion's kept their fleet. When did Orion become a part of the Federation? Considering that they still have huge military and still have imperial government. See, it's possible that they maybe stayed as militia. Though I would push back that if that's the case, if they kept their ships, why don't we see those ships in the movies and in the series? So when they visit Vulcan, when you visit Earth, when you visit Andoria, why aren't we seeing those ships? Why are we only seeing Starfleet Federation? Zenmonk says, have a good evening, night, I must go. Thanks for being here, Zenmonk. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think they do. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Based on my knowledge, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that most all of Starfleet, all of the military is Starfleet ships. We simply don't see the other designs. We don't see Vulcans. We don't see Andorians. We don't see United Earth. We see Starfleet. We see Federation. If they have them, they would be militia. I believe they'd be with it, because anytime there's a huge fight, it's Starfleet that shows up. So it might be, assuming that this is correct, the way I'd see it working in that instance is, I suppose, is maybe the fleets were the National Guard, whereas Starfleet is the actual military. Are there any Starfleet ship designs from Axanar that you like, dislike? Also, what are your thoughts on the Ares class being a pure warship? I think that breaks canon. I don't think the Ares class should exist, but since it's fan fiction, we don't have to worry about that as much. I do like the Ares. I like any ship that reminds me of the Akira class. I'm not sure why, but I absolutely love the Akira class ship. So I think the Ares is a fun ship. And I don't know a lot of the ship classes, if I'm being honest. I do like the Ares. I like the ship with 4 warp nacelles, even though that doesn't make sense. I thought it was cool with the one with 4 warp nacelles, but the Ares is a really fun ship. I like the Constitution class ship in Axanar. Ho ho! Talking about the cruisers from Fossa Shipwreck. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know much about that. I don't know. I would love to play that game just based on Prelude to Axanar, but I don't know a lot about it, so I can't really speak to it. When was the first time we heard about World War III? I always assumed before First Contact that the Vulcans were so impressed with the human race we were able to pull our heads out. I don't know. So the thing is, in the original series, they made it up as they went, and you can actually tell if you're watching. So I'm watching them back to back to back to back to back, and you can really tell that they. Because they didn't know what monolith Trek was going to be, that they just literally was just making stuff up back to back to back to back to back, without any concern about what a next series would have to worry about. And so I'm pretty sure that was a line probably added at some point, and they didn't really flesh it out. I don't know the answer of when World War III was there, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be surprised if it was planned out, honestly. I disagree. They likely have their ships, considering that the Federation ships are basically human ships. Also, in one of the Next Generation episodes that we've seen, Vulcan ships, and they're clearly not 22nd century. Well, Demetrius, John, you and me are just going to disagree on this, my friend. Okay, so here's my pushback for you, Demetrius, John. Where can you provide me evidence that Starfleet, that there are naval ships for them in any of the shows, specifically when we see different planets being threatened, like the United Earth is threatened a lot. We only ever see Starfleet and Federation ships. Starfleet and Federation ships are not United Earth ships. They are specifically there for the defense of all of the Federation. So can you show me in Deep Space Nine? We see a lot of different planets and a lot of different discussions, and in Deep Space Nine, specifically a ship is a Vulcan-only ship, and it's a Starfleet ship that they arrive in. Yeah, Eugenics Wars was in the 90s. I mean, like me, I'm sure all of you remember in the 90s the great Eugenics Wars that we had. I mean, at that point, I was just going through high school, or maybe graduating through high school, and I remember going to college and being a Domino's delivery guy, dealing with the Eugenics Wars and how horrific that was. So I it was a tough time for me being a part of the Eugenics Wars. So yeah. Raw666 says, I think they made up no matter the series. As we see in TNG, we went from an era of peace to finding out that dozens of wars that were happening in the last 50 years. It's possible. God, Professor Janus is trying to get me in trouble. I'm already having issues with people about this. Khan needs some Jesus. He needs some Jesus, sir. You can find FOSSA Star Trek stuff on YouTube. Sure. I'm not saying I can't go find it. I'm just saying I never really got into it. I need to, though. The original series, the focus was on the Klingons. There were still conflicts. See, the thing about the original series is that it was a frontier, and that it was made to be a frontier. Roddenberry, in The Next Generation, basically looked at it as we tamed the frontier. And so, what happens when we tame the frontier? So the original series had a lot more conflict because of that. And that's why Roddenberry thought that you don't get upset about death and humans don't fight because we've tamed the frontier. Yada, yada, yada. The Maquis had their own defense fleets. The Maquis are arguably, the Maquis would be a terrorist organization, so they wouldn't be under the purview of the Federation. Betazoid said it had a defense network. But good night, fun chat. Look forward to the next one. See you, S. Blair. How do you know that the Betazoid defense network was not set up and maintained by Starfleet? Is my question. They were freedom fighters. They were indeed. They were indeed freedom fighters. You can hear my cats fighting in the background, so that's always a fun thing. The space agent from the NASA episode of the original series helped cover up the eugenics war, and the Botany Bay had the impulse engines reverse engineered from Quark's shuttles. Professor Janus says, got to go by, still waiting for Federation Space Marines. Woot. See you, Professor Janus. Thanks for hanging out. Always a pleasure, bud. Have you ever played the Mirror Universe game, Star Trek Shattered Universe? I have, in fact, played it. That was the game where you were in the Starfighters. And I have, in fact, played that. It was a decent enough game. What's going on, Aiden Kerman? It was all right. There were some issues I had. And I wasn't a huge Starfighter fan, gaming-wise, but I have played it. By the end of the Dominion War, Starfleet was scraping the bottom of the barrel. They had the resources, but not the personnel. This wasn't the same, says Epic 00. I'm not sure what for the other powers. By the end of the war, the Federation was in the best spot in comparison to the others. They had ships massively built for war. They upgraded all of their other ships. They had a huge base to pull from. They were putting all of their resources for war. And they had taken massive amounts of damage and massive amounts of losses, but they were still, in my opinion, more powerful than any of the other ones individually. In fact, if not, probably not this upcoming week, the week after that, or the week after that, the end of November, beginning of December, I'm doing a lorecraft that I'm putting together. Starfleet, the Federation, versus the Romulan Star Empire 1 year after the Dominion War. The Ferengi, Watch With Us says, the Ferengi probably were sitting a little prettier post Dominion War. Okay, I'll give you that. The Ferengi were in the best position, probably, when you think about it, of everyone. Because they didn't join the war till late, and I bet that their contributions were probably monetary than anything else. Could the Federation have Cloak? I mean, the Federation could have Cloak. They signed an agreement that they never would have Cloak. But they could have Cloak. They created cloaking technology. They created better cloaking technology than what the Romulans had. But they did not keep it. And the Federation, ironically, keeps to its word most of the time. Yep. Ironically. So, yeah, so the Klingon War, I just wish we had more on it. I would love an actual series that went through the war and looked at the war. That would be very interesting to me. The thing, I still don't think it makes a lot of sense when you're looking at the war in Discovery. If they knew or were confident that Klingon ships, now all of them had cloaking. I know they call it the invisibility screen, cloaking. Then they would have had different tactics. You don't send ships alone when they can be when cloaked ships exist. Max Shinner, I bet Section 31 has the cloaking tech ready to go when they feel the time is right. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Section 31 may have had one or two ships with phase cloaking devices that are kept off the books. I don't know if you guys see this, but the Clone Wars seem like a Hot War sci-fi version of the Cold War. I don't know what you're trying to say, Demetrius John. I don't if you guys see this, but the Clone Wars seem like a Hot War sci-fi version of the Cold War. You mean the Klingon Federation War? Maybe. I don't know. Do you think cloaking technology would be used by the UFP after the Romulan Empire was destroyed, since the treaty would no longer exist without the Romulan Star Empire? I think it's more likely. I couldn't see the Romulan Star Empire being destroyed even after the destruction of their homeworld. And I don't think that the Federation at that point would take advantage of their weakness. I think that the Romulans will ultimately become a part of the Federation in Starfleet. I think that the signs are there. I think that the Federation will become the Dominion of the Alpha Quadrant ultimately. But and at that point, then it goes away. Then you'll have all kinds of ships having cloaking devices. I don't think they'll ever break it unless something crazy happens. Cloaking device is too powerful, too OP, I think, and I don't think they'll give it to Starfleet. I just don't. Think we'll see a Discovery story arc relating to Khan? I hope not. You know what they may do is, you know how they may be doing that new Khan series? I wouldn't be surprised if there was an episode that introduced that show, kind of like what they did with TNG and DS9. The Federation had cloaking technology, but by 2356 they needed a new version versus the Klingon or Romulus technology. Springtime, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a couple days. Hope you are well. I always thought it was weird the Ferengi had ships that could stand up to the galaxy. I think they would hire defenses. Rule of Acquisition 176. Why defend yourself when you can pay someone to? Yeah, the Ferengi changed over time. In the Next Generation, they were supposed to be the big bad. The Ferengi were supposed to be the Cardassians of the Next Generation, but Roddenberry made them a laughable enemy. They made the worst parts of capitalism, and there was nothing about the Ferengi that really impressed audiences. I think the DS9 Ferengi got a lot better, and I think that if you were dealing with the DS9 Ferengi, that it would have been different in the Next Generation. But yeah, I mean, the Galaxy class is just, it has good shields, and it has weapon for its class and for its era. The weapons were good, but man, it was a glass cannon. All you had to do was get past those shields, and then it was just gone. There was nothing to that ship. Starfleet ground forces suck. If not for the tech difference, modern troops would easily beat them. Apparently, they're supposed to be the best trained. I forget what episode it was in, but the first tactical officer, Yar, said that they were the best trained that were out there. The best. I don't get how the Klingon Empire have limited resources when they have millions of planets at their disposal. I think, kind of like the Cardassian. Cardassian space is pretty big, right? But there's not a lot of resources there either. I mean, you can have a large, vast of land and not really have a lot. I mean, if I owned the Nevada desert, I really wouldn't own much, right? And I'm sure someone's going to come and say, yeah, you can get lots of oil or there's wind there. I don't know. You can own a large parcel of land and not have anything. So that doesn't surprise me as much. Honestly, I think part of the Federation got lucky is that a lot of the fertile planets, a lot of the resources are towards the middle of the Alpha Quadrant where the Federation is. Springtime, talking about the Galaxy class ship, bad plot armor. I agree. Orbital stun from ships was never talked about except that one time in the original. Yeah, I'm sure someone after hearing that and watching that on TV, someone thought, "Man, that's a really stupid idea. Let's never talk about that again." Yeah, the Breen. So the mystery about the Breen had always intrigued me. The first time I saw them in DS9, they're still a mystery. That's the interesting thing about the Breen. They are still a mystery. All right, guys, I'm gonna stay on just a little bit longer, and then I got to get to finishing up my script and my editing, and I'm not gonna stay on to do that. I have to get that done tonight quickly because I'm tired. You also forget the Galaxy class was upgraded 2 times since the first season, so I'm curious if Galaxy Season 7 would do against the Marauder of the Ferengi. Probably would still get, well, I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, in even after being upgraded, it was taken down by a bird of prey. So I don't really have much respect for any Galaxy class ship when it comes to combat. What 2 ships in the Federation can get taken down by a bird of prey? The Oberth and the Galaxy class. Why don't we ever see glassing in most sci-fi? Because, I don't know. Probably because the Federation doesn't glass planets. I mean, the Borg kind of did that. They didn't glass them. Master 2 graphic. What software do you use for your video editing? Adobe. I swear by Adobe products. Buy Adobe. Adobe is the best thing on the face of the planet. They are worth every penny. Man in the Black said, was nice to see you live for the first time, Laura. I'm going to try to make it more that you need to. So, if you're watching this, I will definitively be on live on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, usually from anywhere from 8:30 p.m. Central Standard to 9 p.m. Central Standard. And I'm going to start doing live shows where I just come and I hang out. You guys can hang out with me while I edit. That's going to be done via Twitch, probably. I'm thinking about Mixer, but I'm probably going to do it on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. But if you want to make sure to hang out with me, just go to my Twitter, twitter.com/Lore Reloaded, because I'm going to be telling you there when I go live. They should have just decommissioned the Enterprise D. Yes, they should have. You forget some birds of prey were large cruiser class of the next generation. The Cavort were bigger than an Intrepid and just as big as the Cura. The bird of prey is a specific type of ship. It's a specific class of ship. So when I talk about the bird of prey, I'm talking about the very basic ship that's been around since the original series. Which, by the way, again, a bird of prey can beat what 2 ships? Say it, class. Oberth. Galaxy class. The Klingons and Cardassians are both strange, like Russia, with lots of land/space, but a surprising lack of resources. All things considered. Right. So Norby B. Droll 82 points it out. Just because they have a lot of space, a lot of planets, doesn't mean they have a lot of resources. That was the main reason for the Cardassian border wars. And someone put this in a comment, and I thought that it was very succinct. One of the reasons that the Federation was willing to give it up easier than the Cardassians were is because when you look at the Federation economics, the Federation didn't need those planets. The Cardassians did. By the time of the Dominion War, how old were Excelsior class again? 80 to 100 years, I would have to agree. But here's the interesting thing about that. The Excelsior class ships were apparently beasts because they upgraded them to the 9s. Like, you had an Excelsior class ship go up against the Defiant and not do half bad. So they upgraded them to the 9s, but the ships themselves were definitively old. I agree, the frames. Jem'Hadar Fighter and Cardassian Galores, because apparently I can't say Gaylor, Galores, were also beaten by birds of prey. Jem'Hadar Fighters, I would have to see that. I would think they would have gotten swarmed. Because you can't sit there and tell me a Jem'Hadar Fighter would have been, and even if it was, it's not the size or the class that the Galaxy class is. So even if you took out a Jem'Hadar Fighter and a Galaxy class should not necessarily be that equal, even though they were. Well, no, the more I think about it, yeah, because Jem'Hadar just completely owned a Galaxy class. But it took multiple of them to do it. So, again, I know a lot of people get upset that I say that, but there's no reason that a bird of prey should have pwned, as they say in the gaming rhetoric, in the gaming vernacular, the Galaxy class or the Enterprise like it did. Why don't we see Defense Planet? Why don't we see Defense Planet defense grids on Star Trek? We do. There was one in Dominion War. The Battle of Chintaka, first Battle of Chintaka had it. I'll actually be doing a battle breakdown of that Friday, good sir. USS Lakota, that's right. The Lakota was completely upgraded and did very well in a fight against the Defiant. The thing I like about the Excelsior is, and it was even established in the original series, the Excelsior ships really seemed to be modifiable. So it seemed like they made the Constitution class, and it was a juggernaut of its time, and they said, okay, Constitution class is great, but we're going to need something that can be a little more malleable, something we can mix and add and do things with, something we can adjust more. So they made the Excelsior, which can be upgraded, whereas the Constitution cannot be. DS9 had self-replicating mines. Romulans had cloaked mines. Absolutely. Correct. Nailing it. By the way, guys, if you haven't voted, remember to go to youtube.com / go to youtube.com / Lore Reloaded. Go to my community tab and vote on what kind of tattoo you want me to get. At 8,000 subscribers, it's going to be locked down where I'm going to. Right now, Star Trek is winning. There are, let's see, 29 more subscribers, which I'll probably get either tonight or tomorrow. And after that point, it's locked down. Then we're going to vote on, is it's going to be Terran Empire tattoo, Federation tattoo, Romulan tattoo, what kind of tattoo when it comes to that. So if you haven't voted yet, definitely go vote, especially if you don't want me to have a tattoo from Trek. Just putting that out there. There was also 3 classes of bird of prey: Burrell, D12, and Cavort. The Cavort was 600 meters long, while the D12 was an earlier model of the Cavort. The Burrell was the weakest one. The bird of prey that went up against the Galaxy class was one of the original birds of prey. Raw666, I love you, brother, but just because you don't want the fact the bird of prey was weak as hell, it was. That's just canon. Lore Reloaded, what about a video on the siege of AR-558? I will definitively be doing that. I'll probably do a battle breakdown on that one, because I think that'd be a good battle breakdown. The USS Odyssey was destroyed by a Jem'Hadar suicide run plus phased Polaron beams. I agree. That was one of the things I liked about the Dominion. They just beat the hell out of the Federation to begin with. I always felt like it was, I don't know if you'd call it a Deus Ex Machina, but so the Dominion weapons would just tear into Federation technology, and they could beam through Federation shields. The Federation could not stop the Dominion until the war began, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, now they have this special shields. Now they have these shields we can't get through. And it was at the very beginning of the war, and it's like, even Wayun's like, they've never had shields like this that we can get through. And it's just hand-waved away with Dukat saying, oh, never underestimate Cisco. I wish they had went into that a little bit more. Samaravati 3, what you are forgetting is the Klingon bird of prey had codes to counteract Enterprise D's defenses. No, I remember. Yes, I get it. There were no shields. There were no shields. A Constitution class was outmatched by a Constitution class 10-1. Let's count it out, boys, like we're watching Sesame Street. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10-1. A bird of prey was outmatched by a Constitution class. Now let's look at a Galaxy class ship. Now, which one is better? I'm going to let you guys decide. I want you to type it in. 1 for Constitution or 2 for Galaxy class ship. Which one is better? Which one is better? I'm sorry my voice cut out because I hit my thing over here. Which one is better? 1 for Constitution, 2 for Galaxy class. I'm going to give it about 10 seconds for that to catch up. Which one do you guys think is better? 1 for Constitution, 2 for Galaxy. Here we go. Okay, the ones who are doing 3. Yeah, I'm glad we have 3. Okay. Okay, everybody here knows, everybody watching, Galaxy class ship. Galaxy class ship is better than a Constitution class ship. A Constitution class ship can beat a bird of prey 10-1. Without shields, it should still win. Should still win. Y'all make me tired. Make me tired, sir. I love the 3s. The USS Constitution could beat the USS Galaxy. Wow. Man, I am getting a new camera. I'm sorry, guys. All right. Let's see. Can I... Bird of prey attacked USS Enterprise. Let's see. The Lurin Bird of Prey was a Klingon Burrell commanded by the Ferengi. Nope, that's not it. What about Constitution commanded by Kirk? Star Trek Generations Bird of Prey. Duras Sisters Bird of Prey. The Duras Sisters. Was retired from service by the 2350s due to faulty plasma coils. Sorry, I'm just reading this real quick. No, there's no way. Oh. Is that better? Can y'all hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yep, you can hear me now. Sorry about that. We hear you. We hear you now. Oh, Ronnie Curtis has got jokes. Ronnie Curtis. By the Burrell class logic, if a Connie can beat 10 Burrells and a Galaxy is worth half a Burrell, then the Connie wins versus Galaxy, despite having Baja or Baja blue phasers instead of Dorito phasers. I just don't know how anybody can defend that. I mean, it's cool. This is about a conversation. I'm not mad at you. I mean, if you disagree with me, that's fine. It's cool. It's just one of those things that I just can't. I can't see how someone. It feels like you have to jump hoops to do that. Now, you might disagree with me. You might think I'm crazy, and that's fine. I mean, I've been wrong before. But and I'm not like when I get passionate, it doesn't mean like I'm mad or anything like that. It's just my opinion. So it's like when I don't know. There are all kinds of things that I can get passionate about. Doesn't mean I'm mad at you. It's just that just seems stupid to me. Like just that set phaser to fun. Set phasers to fun. Like for instance, people get upset or people are like, "Why are you so big on the Vulcan hello? It makes a lot of sense to me." The Vulcan hello doesn't make any sense to me. It's not logical. I don't think it's what they would do. There's a reason why I mock it. But if you like it or you think it's logical, it's fine. I mean, if you enjoy it, that's okay. It just doesn't make any sense to me. At best, it's a sad situation where the Enterprise was lost to a lucky shot. I would agree. I'd agree. Because, yeah, people say it just hit the engines or whatnot. The other thing they did, so it was a lucky shot, and the tactics, the crew didn't act like a crew that has been in a ship and has done fights. So if you get hit and you're in an enemy that can pierce your shields or pierce your armor, and you don't turn and run, especially when you outmatch the Burrell. I mean, even if it got a lucky shot, they should have turned around. They didn't have to do any of this. Let's target its whatevers. Turn around and just use your weapons to McPone it. Even if it's a 24th or 23rd century, 24th century. It was in the 2280s. 23rd century ship. They can still overpower it. I mean, it would be like, I don't know. I don't know classes, but the Galaxy is still a stronger ship than the Bird of Prey, even if it's a modern Bird of Prey. Raw 666, we don't know enough about that particular class of Bird of Prey. As I stated, there were different classes and some big enough to count as cruisers. It was a D12 is what they said. A D12 class. And if the Klingons were smart, they would have transported a torpedo next to the Enterprise. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, if they could get through the shields, if they had the modulation, because I don't know if it's canon, but I do know that in some resources you can, if you have the modulation, you can beam through the shields. Yeah, just like instead of firing on it, just do 6 torpedoes armed, just encircle. Yeah, they were stupid about that too. Yo. Anyway, guys, look up the Brit BCs at Jutland. Several were sunk due to lucky shots and bad damage control. All right, guys, this is where we're going to end it. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't checked out my other stuff, go to patreon.com/Lore Reloaded or go to twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. Check out my community tab. Guys, this channel is made by viewers like you, so I want to thank you so much for watching. I will be back definitively tomorrow to talk about Star Wars. So if you're a Star Wars fan, be here for that. We're going to be going through the series. Sunday will be the mid-season finale. And don't forget, I'm going to be doing Star Trek Online, so we're going to have a lot of fun stuff with that. But as always, thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.